All right. I think we're live. This is actually this is the second Game Master's Journey live stream, but the first one was just kind of a test run, and that was a while ago. And so I'm just gonna make sure that everything here is working like it should be. So just bear with me for a minute here. All right, so this says that I am broadcasting. So if I go to my YouTube channel, I don't see it yet. Hmm. Interesting. I think the problem may be. Oh, this says is someone out there? Hey, what's up? So someone's watching, so I guess it's working. I just can't see it on my end. But looks like it's working. I'm curious how you're watching. Are you seeing this on my YouTube channel? Here, I'll ask in the chat. Okay. All right. So people are seeing it. I don't know. Oh, there we are. Now I can see it. Okay. Sorry, I just couldn't see it on my end. I wanted to make sure this was working. So awesome. So already have a few people in the chat. We've got Ross and Trev 1394. Is that Trevor? Maybe. Could be. All right. Cool. So yeah, this is working. Awesome. So yeah, so this is my first time doing this. This is something I'm going to do on at least a monthly basis. Oh, hi Trevor. Long time no see, man. Good to see you. So yeah, I'm going to be doing this on at least a monthly basis. This is something unlocked by the patrons of Starwalker Studios, and kind of my thought with this is it will just be kind of a casual live stream. People in the audience that have questions can ask questions, or if you have topics you'd like to suggest, you can do that, and we'll just kind of see how this goes. I did come with a couple ideas of things to talk about today in case nobody has anything they want to talk about. And ultimately, what I would like to do is sometimes at least be able to bring people into here, but I don't think I can do that today because Hangouts has changed their UI quite a bit, so I don't know how to do that anymore. Oh, and there's Steve. Hello, Steve. So yeah, eventually I want to be able to do that, but I don't know how. So I have to do some research to see how to do that. Maybe it's an app here. Interesting. Hangout Toolbox. Yeah, I want Hangout Toolbox. Control room. Oh, you know what I do? I think I just send a link. I think that's how it works now. So, yeah, if anybody out there who's watching, I'm just streaming on YouTube, as far as I know. um, yeah, I got too many windows open. I'm getting confused. Okay, so yeah, if anybody who's watching wants to come in, just let me know in the chat, and I can send you a link. I'm not sure. For some reason, my YouTube is not working right. Like, I can't see right now how many are watching. I think what's going on is I created an event for this earlier, and I set it up wrong, and it wouldn't let me delete the event. So I just created another event, and I think it's confused. So I'm glad people can watch it, but unfortunately, I can't see who's watching or how many people are watching or anything like that, unfortunately. Oh, Ross is from Germany. That's awesome. That is super cool. Hello, Ross in Germany. All right, so I'm going to quit messing with this and trying to get this to work. So yeah, hopefully in the future I'll be able to bring people into this, and there'll be an easier way to do it. But for today, if you want to come join me in the Hangout, just let me know as in the chat, and I can send you a link. I think that's how we do that. Or I might have to add you. Oh yeah, I can add people up here. Okay. And Casey is here. So Steve and Casey are both in my game I'm running tonight. So when this is going to last about an hour, and then we'll have a half-hour break, and then at 6 Pacific time, we will be back playing Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan. And Steve and Casey are in that group. So Ross says he has just started as a GM last week. So that is awesome, man. That is awesome. So as a new GM, if you have any questions or anything, let me know in the chat, and I can talk about it. Otherwise, I thought what we could talk about today, or what I could talk about today, is a couple of the new products that have been announced. And Trevor says he's been DMing for his friends as well. That's awesome, Trevor. So assuming, I think this is the same Trevor that was in my, oh God, what campaign was that? Tyranny of Dragons way back when. And I think Trevor played Lost Mine of Fandelver with us and something else too. And Crypto Spiridium 137 has joined us. Awesome. I'm actually surprised anybody is here because this was kind of last minute. Oh, so Ross is interested in the new Tomb of Annihilation. Oh yeah, so that is the same Trevor. Trevor, it's been a long time. I'm glad to hear that you're running games now. Yeah, you should stick around for our game later. Dwayne's in that, and you know Dwayne. And yeah, we're doing Hidden Shrine. Should be crazy. So yeah, Tomb of Annihilation we can talk about. Let me find the right window here. Boop. So I did not watch the stream. So Wizards did a weekend-long event. It was Friday and Saturday this last weekend, and they did a lot of streaming of D&D games and whatnot. And that's when they announced these new products. So I believe those are up on their YouTube channel now. So if you go to the D&D YouTube channel, you should be able to watch those events if you're interested in that. And here, I can throw a link to that in the chat, so you can check that out later if you want. But that's their that's Wizards YouTube channel, and yeah, it looks like they've got Tomb of Annihilation highlights up there so far. And then anything that it sounds like they're going to put everything up on the YouTube channel, but it might take a while for it all to get up there. So if you have Twitch, I think it's all on Twitch right now. So you can go see it all on Twitch. So someone who watched those probably knows more about this stuff than I do. I just really know what they have on their product page. And also I received an email from them about it, which I don't think actually tells anything more what's on their product page. And Trevor finally got a new computer. Oh, I remember now, Trevor. That's why you had to leave the game, because you were having computer issues. Yeah, well, you should come back and play with us, Trevor. Shoot me an email or a message on Roll20. We've got 6 players right now in Hidden Shrine, but people are always dropping out. So it's always good to have people that want to play. Yeah, so the Tomb of Annihilation takes place on Chult, which I think in 2nd edition days was an island, and then it was a peninsula, and then it was an island again, I think, and now it's a peninsula again. Yeah, actually, the email they sent me doesn't tell me as much as the product information does, so we'll just go to that. So yeah, they're saying this is the deadliest adventure yet. I don't know what that means. I thought Tomb of Horrors was supposed to be the deadliest adventure yet. But let's see what they say. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Tomb of Annihilation. The talk of the streets and taverns has all been about the so-called death curse, a wasting disease afflicting everyone who's ever been raised from the dead. Victims grow thinner and weaker each day, slowly but steadily sliding toward the death they once denied. So that sounds cool. So basically, this is a curse that afflicts people who've been raised from the dead, which is going to be a lot of at least high-level player characters. There is a link in chat. I just put the link to the product information for Tomb of Annihilation. This is basically what I know about this. So this is going to be for level 1 to 11. So still no high-level game content from Wizards yet. I'd really like to see them do like a 15 to 20 campaign. So far, the highest level any of their published stuff has taken us in 5th edition is level 15. So after that, you're on your own. So yeah, so there's this curse, this wasting disease afflicting people who's been raised from the dead. Now this seems like this would have been a great thing to do with higher level, where you would have player characters who've been raised from the dead, perhaps, and afflicted by this sickness. So it's starting at 1st level, so it's unlikely that your 1st level character has been raised from the dead. So I guess that's going to be something more happening with NPCs than with your own characters, at least in the beginning. So it says when they finally succumb, they can't be raised. So I guess the idea is if you've been raised from the dead, you get the sickness, and once the sickness kills you, you can't be raised from the dead anymore. And neither can anyone else, regardless of whether they've ever received that miracle in the past. So I guess they're saying that raised dead isn't working now. I don't know. That's a little confusing. Temples and scholars of divine magic are at a loss to explain a curse that has affected the entire region and possibly the entire world. So to me, this sounds like no resurrection magic is working, at least in Chult and maybe in the whole Forgotten Realms. And yes, there is an evil lich involved, and I suppose that is a spoiler, but not really that much of a spoiler because he's on the cover of the book. And I think they mentioned him in the live stream, if not in this. A Sararak, it's the dude from Tomb of Horrors. who's like the big bad in this. The cause is a necromantic artifact called the Soulmonger, which is located somewhere in Chult, a mysterious peninsula far to the south, ringed with mountains and choked with rainforests. And yeah, adventure design by Chris Perkins, Will Doyle, and Steve Winter, with additional design by Adam Lee. And yeah, it's going to be $50. It's coming out September 19th, hardcover. And it doesn't say it here, but somewhere I saw that it's level 1 to 11. And yeah, where did I see more information? Because this doesn't say anything about a Sararak either. I think it was Jeremy Crawford's tweet on Twitter, which is where I first found out about this. And yeah, I remember Chalt from the second edition days. Yes, wizards, I agree to your cookies. And so Chalt is a jungle. It's always been kind of removed from the rest of Forgotten Realms, so I think this will be a better adventure than a lot of them have been for people who aren't running in the realms, whether you're running in another homebrew setting or in another homebrew, whether you're running in your homebrew setting or you're running in another official setting from a previous edition of the game. I think this will work a little bit better and be a little bit easier to use in a different setting than all the other ones that have taken place on the Sword Coast, because Chult has always been kind of isolated and all by itself. So you could take the jungles of Chult and put them in your world, whatever world you're using, I think fairly easily. Kind of the shtick with Chult, at least in the past, and it sounds like it's going to be the case here, is there's dinosaurs there. So it's a land of the lost kind of place. And we have some dinosaurs in the monster manual, and I think there's some more in Volo's guide. So I think it's a pretty safe bet. We're going to get even more dinosaurs in this product. I've heard talk on Twitter of zombie dinosaurs. So there you go. If dinosaurs aren't enough, there's also going to be undead dinosaurs and dinosaur zombies. So that will be cool. So yeah, I mean, some people really aren't into dinosaurs, and so they're not super keen on this. And lots of people aren't really into the realms, and so they're not super keen on this. But I think it'll be all right, And something I've seen a lot of people say on Twitter is, you're playing this high fantasy game with all these crazy like liches and stuff, but you've got a problem with dinosaurs. So I get that, right? It's like we've got beholders and undead and hydras and all this crazy stuff. Like, who cares about dinosaurs? Dinosaurs are pretty mundane compared to a lot of that, because dinosaurs were real. So yeah, I think it'll be cool. And yeah, it's Forgotten Realms, like pretty much everything they've done so far has been, but at least I think Chult will hopefully be less deeply tied into the realms as a lot of the other stuff that's on the Sword Coast, so it'll be easier to use in other settings. So yeah, I think it'll be all right. Let's see. I lost track of chat here. Trevor says deadly sounds fun. I agree. I think if it truly is super deadly, I think that'll be fun. And with dinosaurs, it makes sense. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the dinosaurs in 5th edition, but I know in earlier editions, like 2nd edition, because I actually ran some stuff in Chult in 2nd edition, they would just like swallow you whole and stuff, which was pretty awesome. I'm trying to remember. I feel like was Chult, did they have this stupid dinosaur race, the Saurials or whatever, or was that something else? I hope that I thought those guys were dumb, but they were like half dinosaur people. They were like a player character race. This is pretty weird. Let's see, what else are people saying? I got to get caught up here. You can ride dinosaurs. Yeah, totally. You can ride some dinosaurs. Matthew Edwards says, "I expect your review by September 20th. When's it coming out? The 19th? Yeah, I I won't have a review by the 20th because as I've said on the podcast, I like to actually read the thing at least once before I review it. I don't just skim it and then do a review like a lot of people do. So yeah, my reviews take a little bit longer. I won't have a review out the next day. I can pretty much guarantee you that. Trevor PM me. Cool, Trevor. Yeah, if we need someone else for this thing we're doing, I'll definitely let you know. And otherwise, whatever the next thing is that I do. Um, let's see, what else are people love Chult. Yeah, Chult's pretty cool. I liked it. That was one of the few places in Forgotten Realms I used back in the day. Yeah, I kind of dig dinosaurs. And if I remember right, I was using Chult about the time the first Jurassic Park came out. So like everybody, yeah, I remember because I remember using Velociraptors all the time. I would just have herds of Velociraptors come at the PCs, and that was a lot of fun. I did not run a campaign in Chult with the spaceship. I did run a campaign in Chult, but it was my own homebrewed thing with lots of Velociraptors and Triceratops, but no spaceship. Okay. So yeah, that's the Tomb of Annihilation. What I'm actually much more excited about than that is Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And if you got Volo's Guide, and I'll put a link to that product information. If you got Volo's Guide, then you know who Xanathar is, or if you're a Realms buff, you might know who Xanathar is. Xanathar is a beholder. I like to think he's the beholder on the front of the monster manual. Actually, let me check, because they probably say if he is in the little caption. Da, 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 da. Where does it say on the cover? Cover illustrator. Now you see how bad my vision is. Yes, this is Xanathar on the front of the monster manual. So this this is Xanathar. He is a beholder that, if I remember right, he lives under Waterdeep, I think, and he runs like a thieves guild or something. I don't remember. There's quite a bit on him in Volo's Guide in the section on beholders. So the reason, because people were wondering, like, why is this called Xanathar's Guide to Everything? Doesn't seem like a great title for this book. And I think it was Mike Mearls said on Twitter that the idea is that he is kind of the point of view of the book. Like Xanathar is the one telling us about all this stuff, which I don't honestly know how that's going to make sense. But we'll see. But this is a bunch of player options and also has some DM stuff. So this is Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Assembled here for the first time is new information on adventurers of every stripe. So I guess maybe this is written from the point of view of he's telling you about all the adventurers out there. But it just seems really odd to me, a book full of player options, to try to write that in character, in world. Like, just doesn't make sense to me. Now, an adventure or like a campaign setting book, like that totally makes sense, or something like Volo's Guide, it made sense. But for this, I don't think that really makes sense. And I think it's a terrible title. I mean, the title, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, doesn't tell you what this book is. You know, if they would have called it, like, I don't know what they would have called it. I mean, people want it to be like the Player's Handbook 2 or the DMG 2, which I'm not a fan of those titles either, but at least those would tell you what it is. But anyway, uh, you'll find valuable advice for those of nefarious intent who must deal with such meddling do-gooders, including the Xanathar. I think there shouldn't be a the there, including Xanathar's personal thoughts on how to dispatch anyone foolish enough to interfere with his business dealings. Alongside observations on heroes themselves, the beholder fills the pages of this tome with his personal thoughts on tricks, traps, and even treasures, and how they can be put to villainous use. So this is kind of cool because it's for players and DMs. So we've got more than 20 new subclasses, and I believe the actual number is 21 subclasses. These are, I'm guessing, going to all be things we've seen in Unearthed Arcana. They use the Unearthed Arcana to playtest stuff, so these will be final versions of that, just like we got a final version of the Swashbuckler in, I think it was the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide that we'd seen in Unearthed Arcana before. And they further said on Twitter that every class is getting at least 2 new subclasses, except the Wizard, which is only getting 1. And some of the ones that they mention here that are included are the Cavalier, the Inquisitive, the Horizon Walker, and actually we just got a revised version of the Cavalier in the Unearthed Arcana that just came out this week. We're going to get dozens of new feats and spells. So some of those feats and spells we've probably seen in the Unearthed Arcana, but we haven't seen dozens. So there's going to be some feats and spells that we haven't seen before, which is pretty cool. And a system to give your character a unique randomized backstory. So I guess if you want a random backstory, there you go. That could be fun, especially for like a one-shot. That could be fun. So that's all player stuff. And then for the DM, we've got a variety of systems and tools that provide Dungeon Masters new ways to personalize their home games while also expanding the ways players can engage in organized play and shared world campaigns. That doesn't really tell you much. But what they said on, wow, they did better on Twitter. The little blurbs they gave about it on Twitter, they did a better job of telling you what's in this than the product thing does. But they said on Twitter that this will have updated downtime rules. So we saw a rough draft of that in the Unearthed Arcana. So it's going to have the downtime activities. It's going to have new rules for traps, which we also saw in Unearthed Arcana. And I'm trying to remember what else they said. Let me find Jeremy Crawford's Twitter, because I'm pretty sure it was him who was telling us about it. Yeah, it's pretty bad when he tells us more on Twitter than the thing does. Let's see. Okay, there he's talking about today's Unearthed Arcana. Oh, and also, if you guys aren't keeping up on what's going on with D&D on Twitter, the Artificer and the Mystic have been released on the DM's Guild. Now, this is the version that we most recently got in Unearthed Arcana. They haven't done anything new with them yet. I'm really not understanding why they put them on the DM's Guild. I guess maybe they think that more people will see them there, but they're wanting to open those up to more play testing. And the Artificer is they're both new classes. So the Artificer is kind of a wizard sort of character that makes magic items. He's not really a wizard. And the Mystic is the psionicist. So those are on the DM's Guild, but if you already got the Unearthed Arcana one, it's the same thing. But they're wanting more play testing, and they're going to woodshop those 2 classes some more. I kind of doubt those are going to be in Xanathar's guide, just because this thing's coming out in November, and I don't see them doing a whole nother round of play testing and finalizing those by November. But maybe they will. And also in the blurb here, they don't say anything about new classes. They just talk about new subclasses. But yeah, November 21st it comes out. So let's see, Jeremy says, subclasses in Xanathar's Guide have appeared in Unearthed Arcana. The book contains the most popular ones in their finished forms. So he says over 25 new subclasses, a host of new spells, new rules on magic items, downtime, traps, and more. So I think all of this stuff we've seen in the Unearthed Arcana. They gave us new downtime rules, including new rules for crafting magic items, and they gave us new traps rules. So I think we're just going to get kind of a revised, finalized form of a lot of the stuff we've been seeing in Unearthed Arcana for the last year or so. All right, I'm getting behind in chat again. Steve says he wants the guide really bad. Yeah, I see Tomb of Annihilation, I'm kind of meh on. I hate it when people say that, and I just said it. I'm kind of ambivalent. It does sound cool because it is Chult, which I liked back in the day, and I think it would be easier, for instance, for me to put that in Primordia than any of the other adventures they've done. So that's cool. And I'm curious to see what they do with it because it only goes to 11th level instead of 15th. Going to be more like new monsters and who knows what, but there's more room for non-adventure stuff in there. And someone said, I haven't seen this myself, but someone said that they'd said that it was going to be more sandboxy. So that would be cool. So we could see something like Storm King's Thunder, where we had that chapter with just a bunch of locations in the Sword Coast and different kind of random encounters you could have out there. So that would be really cool if they had a big section like that for Chult of just like, here are some adventure locations and things that could happen. That would be super cool. So I guess the more I think about it, the more excited I get. But my first impression was like, oh man, another like adventure path in the realms. But this one could be cooler for those of us not running into realms. But Xanathar's Guide, I'm really excited about. I'm hoping that they have quite a few new domains. We've only seen like a handful of new domains in the Unearthed Arcana, so that's probably all we'll see. But I'm just hoping that they have even more. Um, New feats will be great. New spells will be awesome. Hopefully, there's a lot of new spells, and I could see there being spells that we haven't seen in Unearthed Arcana because spells are a lot easier to design than feats or subclasses. So they may not feel the need to playtest spells in the Unearthed Arcana. I have a feeling the feats will have seen all those before. They've released quite a few feats in the Unearthed Arcana, especially recently. They did feats for all the skills and they did racial feats. And then they did some other feats in some other ones earlier. So I think we'll see all those. And yeah, lots of new spells. And then, yeah, new subclasses. You know, those have been kind of hit or miss for me. Some of the new subclass ideas they have are pretty cool. Like for instance, the what they're calling the Celestial Sorcerer now, which was originally the Undying Light or something like that sorcerer. It's a sorcerer that channels divine power. And I think that's pretty cool because the new version, they get Cure Wounds and they get Lesser and Greater Restoration for spells they can know. So you could have a sorcerer who's like your party healer, which I think is pretty cool. I think we need more classes and subclasses in the game that have the restoration spells so that you have more ways to have that than just having a cleric or a bard in the party. So yeah, I'm really excited about Xanathar's Guide. And honestly, I think even more than the player options, I'm excited to see the new downtime rules and the other new DM stuff, the new um, magic item stuff, and yeah, new traps, new trap rules. I'm really excited for that. I've been asking Wizards, like every time I do one of their surveys, I'm always like, you know, what I'd really like to see is more player options. I want more spells. I want more feats. I want more domains. And then I'd like to see more tools for DMs who are running in their own worlds or running their own adventures. You know, we've got a lot of great stuff in the Dungeon Master's Guide for, you know, helping you to create adventures and create your setting and create NPCs and stuff like that and create magic items. I just like to see more of that kind of stuff from Wizards. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really think or I believe that a lot of DMs are running their own adventures, running in their own settings. And for DMs like that, you know, something like, you know, these adventure paths that they put out, I mean, they're just not always terribly useful. Or they're not as useful as a book just full of tools for a DM would be, like story seeds and encounters that you could put anywhere, and more guidance on creating your own monsters and creating your own magic items and creating your own spells and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they've been listening because it seems like Xanathar's Guide could have some of that stuff in it. And hopefully there's more in there than what they're teasing to us. Hopefully they're giving us the highlights, but there's going to be even more stuff in there. All right, let's go back to what people are saying. D&D shoots and ladders. Hey, could be. Do. Oh, DM Nell's here. Hey, DM Nell. Yeah, DM Nell, I'm with you. I hope they have more original spells. I just I'm afraid, just going by how Wizards has been doing 5th edition so far, that a lot of the quote new spells will actually be spells that they've just converted from previous editions, which that would be great, because I mean there are some like old classic D&D spells that we don't have in 5th edition. So it'd be great to see some of those, but I would like to see like actual brand new spells that we've never seen before. That would be awesome. Got some people saying they like sandbox games, and I do too. I got to ask you guys, are you guys familiar with the West Marches style campaign? Because I think my next campaign I run is going to be something like that. And I'm probably going to do some episodes of the podcast about that, because I am all about West Marches these days, which is very sandboxy. Let's see. Ross says, can we talk, or hey, we should talk about cool feats and spells we can give each player. Oh, page count on Xanathar. Does it have a page count? No, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like they give us a page count. That's a good question. It is $49.95. So I don't know. Was Sword Coast $49.95? I think I got it right here, because that book was kind of light. It was not. It was $39.95. So yeah. So hopefully it'll be a meaty book and not like Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which was kind of thin. Um, Okay, I think Ross is saying he's not familiar with West Marches, so let me find the link for you, man. This is great stuff. Ba, 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 ba. And even if the full West Marches thing doesn't work for you, because there's a lot to it, there are elements that you might be able to make use of. So here's a blog. This is what's his name? I always forget his name. Ben Robbins. If you're familiar with the Kingdom or Microscope games, he's the guy behind that. And so this is a link to his blog, and this was a campaign he ran, and there's a series of blog posts about it. And it's a very sandboxy campaign style, where you basically give the player characters a map of the area, and it's an in-world map. It's not like a all-knowing map. So there could be mistakes on the map. There could be things that aren't on the map, and the kind of the idea is that the players explore, and you just sprinkle adventure locations all over this map, and they go wherever they want to go and explore things. And it's very sandboxy, but you could easily put some plotted stuff in there. Um, for instance, the one I've been working on, I may use some of the published stuff, like for instance, what's it called, the Sunless Citadel from Tales from the Yawning Portal. I might put the Sunless Citadel somewhere on the map, and so if the PCs go there, then they can go through that particular dungeon. Or I could put the Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan on the map, or anything really. So you can have areas of it that are more plotted if you want, but overall the thing's very sandboxy, because there's no like meta plot telling the PCs where to go. They just go wherever they want. And the way Ben did it was each they had like a town that they went out from, and the idea is each session, at the end of the game session, you have to go back to town, because he had something like 30 to 50 players. And the idea is that you have this big pool of players, and the players organize groups themselves and decide, okay, these 5 players are going to take their characters and they're going to go to this place on the map. And then you run that for them in one session, and then they come back, and everybody comes back at the end of the session, so that you're not stuck with that group. And it puts some of the things that normally are on the shoulders of the GM in the hands of the players, as far as it's up to them to organize the actual play sessions. And of course, they have to make sure the DM can run then, but it's up to the players to decide, when are we going to play, who's going to come, what are we going to do. And then they let the GM know, like, hey, we want to run, we want to play on Saturday. these 5 players are going to go, and we're going to go to this location and do this thing, and then the GM prepares for that and runs it. So it's something I'm thinking about doing because I have a lot more people who want to play in my games than I can have in just one group. So I could have this pool of everybody that wants to play, and then, you know, whenever I can run a game, I run a game, and whoever can be there is there, and we don't have to worry about only these 6 people can play. And also people could play multiple characters. So you could have characters of different levels, and depending on what you're wanting to do that day could help you decide which character you want to play. So, I mean, that's really nutshelling it. There's a lot more to it than that, but you can check out that blog for more information. And I'm probably going to do an episode, at least one episode of the podcast on it, because I really dig it, and it's there's a lot more to say about it. Ba, ba, ba. I'm just going through some of the comments here. So Ross says, I have an idea for a wizard. Member from a long forgotten order contacts the wizard. No one else can hear the member and tells them that they are talented and boosts their wizard ego. That's usually not hard to do with a wizard. Then as they complete tasks, they gain access to spells never known, etc. Yeah, that would be cool. Problem is it may conflict with what the party wants to do as a group. Yeah. Yeah. Rob says Lex just volunteered to run a West Marches game. Yeah, I'm working on one. My next after I finish this Yawning Portal campaign, I'm hoping that my next campaign to get something like that going. I'm going to do it in Primordia, and it's going to be East Marches just because of the geography. But yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. Yeah, you know, Ross, that idea about the wizard would be really cool in a solo campaign, or in a campaign where everybody's wizards. Or I guess another way you could do it is do something different with each character and just kind of rotate. So this week we're going to do the thing with the wizard, and next week, you know, we do something with the rogue or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, West Marches is pretty cool. Probably gonna modify it a bit myself, because one of Ben's things was he said like never have adventures in the town, like the home base. The idea is that the home base is safe and everything outside is dangerous, and he wanted the player characters to go out of town to have adventures. He didn't want them having adventures in town. I would not be so opposed to them having adventures in town as long as it wasn't like all the time. But I'm probably going to use a village for my home base. And yeah, there aren't really villages in Primordia right now. So that'll be a fun part of it is like, how is there a village? All right. I wonder, I'm going to check and see if my YouTube is still screwed up or if I can actually see it now. Do, do, do. Yeah, town is the save portal, Rob says. That's basically it. Yeah, town is where you go and save your game, basically. And yeah, the idea is that, you know, it's all about one shots, because you want to, oh, cool, it's working now. You want to get the player characters back to town by the end of the session so that the next week everybody's free in your pool of players to set up the next adventure. Because otherwise, if you can't get them back to town, you've got these 5 characters are out in Timbuktu somewhere, and now they're kind of stuck until that group can get together and finish that adventure. And the whole idea of this is to have flexibility, so you know people can form different groups all the time. And then the way he did it, which was really cool, is the map is an in-world object. It's, you know, drawn by a cartographer in the world. And the idea is, as the player characters adventure, they discover things that aren't on the map and they add to the map. And the way he did it in his campaign was the home base, there was a tavern that the adventurers would gather at and form groups to go on adventures. And in this tavern, there was a large table, and someone had carved a map of the area into the top of the table. And so as adventurers came back from their forays out into the wilds, if they discovered something new, they would carve it into the map. So I think when he was running it, it was an in-person game. So he had an actual physical paper map that was hand-drawn. And then as player characters adventured, and as they discovered things, the players would literally draw what they found on the map. And it was kind of cool because the map wasn't accurate. You know, it wasn't to scale. There were things that were out there that weren't on the map. There might be things that are on the map that aren't out there anymore. And there could be things that aren't where the map says they are. And he would not tell the players, like, if they screwed up, like maybe they find a new dungeon and they want to add it to the map, and maybe they make some rolls to figure out where this is to put it on the map. Well, he wouldn't tell them if they succeeded at those rolls or not. So they don't know how accurate the map is. They just make their best guess. And then the next group that goes to find that dungeon may have problems finding it if it's not accurate where it is on the map. Another cool thing about it that he did was he recommended, and this is something I would totally want to do, is he kind of had, it was almost like an MMO in a way, in that he would have different areas that were different levels. So like real close to the settlement tended to be more lower level stuff. But then as you got farther and farther away in any direction, it got tougher and tougher, the things that you would encounter. So what he would do is, like, say you have a dungeon, like let's say something like the Sunless Citadel or something. So this is a dungeon, which that would be kind of too big for this because you can't do that in one session. But let's say you had this little dungeon, and let's say you designed it for, you know, I don't know, first to third level characters or something like that. What he said to do is have an area of that dungeon that was way higher level. So maybe most of the stuff you encounter is CR5 or less, but then there's one room in the dungeon that maybe there's like a CR10 creature in there or something that's just way beyond the level that the PCs would be. And the idea is that, well, first of all, they have to be smart enough to assess the threat and know they should run away, figure out they should run away while they still can run away, and run away so that they can survive. And then the other thing is it gives a reason for either those characters or another group of characters to come back to that dungeon later, because they're going to come back to town and tell everybody, hey, we found this dungeon, this is what happened, this is what we found, this is what we encountered. However, there was this one room, there was a black dragon in there, and the black dragon kicked our asses and we had to run away. So we don't really know um, what's beyond that room because we couldn't get past it. And then a higher level party could be like, oh, well, we're going to go take on that black dragon and take his treasure. Or that same group of characters could adventure for a while, gain some levels, and then they could go back. And then, of course, like, let's say the first group says, okay, we're going to go do some other adventures. A few months go by in game time, in world time, and then they go back. Well, during that few months, you know, all those areas that they cleared in that dungeon have probably been taken over by something else. So it's going to be, for the most part, the same map, but they're going to encounter completely different things in there, and then eventually they're going to go take on this dragon, supposedly. So, you know, I thought that was kind of cool because it's like, it's very, like all campaigns, it's very front loaded. There's a lot you got to do in the beginning to get it set up, and it's a sandbox campaign, so there's even more you have to do in the beginning. But then you can kind of cruise after that because you're not going to have to redo the maps, and you can use the same map for multiple groups over multiple sessions. And the only thing you're going to change is the encounters, you know, any creatures that the player characters kill, well, then there's going to be something else there next time, and you have to think about, well, what would happen. So I thought that seemed kind of cool. Oh boy, and I'm behind in the chat again. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's where we were. Steve says that people in the village smell so bad the monsters stay away. That could be. That could be a reason. The village is a mimic playing the long con. I love that. That's hilarious. Yeah, so people are throwing out some ideas for the village. Don't worry, I've already got an idea for that. But yeah, yeah, some good ideas here. Oh yeah. Oh man. So DM now asked me about Mike Mearls' thing about bonus actions. Yeah, he did a thing on Twitter about this crazy initiative system he uses, and I know a lot of people just love it or think they do, but I think it's a train wreck, honestly. I would never want to use that initiative system of his. It seems so just over designed and overcomplicated and slow and clunky. And the worst thing about it, well, first of all, you're rolling all these different dice, and it just makes it complicated. No one's ever going to know what their initiative is. But the worst thing about it is everybody has to declare what they're going to do before they do anything, and then they roll initiative, and then they have to do the thing that they said they were going to do. And I've played games that do initiative like that, and it's just a train wreck. I hate it. So DM now was asking about the bonus actions, and I think that was part of it. Yeah, I don't honestly. I'm so glad that Jeremy Crawford is the one that designs the rules and not Mike Mearls, because I don't know where he's coming from a lot of times when it comes to the rules. I don't have a problem with bonus actions. I think that they um, give you the ability to do more in a turn, and kind of replace like the free action, and in earlier editions we had free actions, and I don't even remember all the different actions. It used to be more complicated than it is now. So I think bonus actions like made things simpler and easier to understand, but at the same time, if you have something you can do with your bonus action, you can do more in a turn. So like healing word is a bonus action. So if I'm playing a cleric, I can use healing word. I can heal someone that's at 0 hit points a little tiny bit, get them back up, and I can use a cantrip or take an attack in the same round, which is awesome for clerics because you don't have to just heal people and that's all you can do in a turn. Wizards have bonus actions. I like the way that it balances multi-weapon fighting. So like two weapon fighting, in previous editions that was sometimes broken. If you use two weapons, once you got the feats or whatever you needed for that, it was kind of overpowered. But I think because your off attack uses a bonus action, it prevents that from happening. So I'm a fan of bonus actions. I'm not really looking for a way to replace them. So I'm fine with Mike Mearls coming up with these harebrained house rules and putting them in like something like I'd like to see like a DMG2 or whatever you would call it. Like I'd love more variant rules and house rules like that. As long as they don't say this is the way D&D works now, or they're going to make a 6th edition without bonus actions, like as long as they don't do something like that, I'm fine with it. But I personally would not use his initiative system, and I'm not looking to get rid of bonus actions. I think reactions are more complicated than bonus actions, and I like reactions. So let's see. Steve says he likes his bonus actions. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say if anything, they're too limiting. Especially for instance, the two weapon fighter or like the rogue, they have a hard time with bonus actions because there's so many things that are kind of wanting to use their bonus action. So if anything, I'd say they're too limiting, not like, oh, we should just throw out bonus actions. Yeah, Raymond Talley asks about, we're almost out of time, but Raymond Talley asks about any ideas on encouraging manipulating to get more encounters per long rest. You know what? I honestly don't worry about it. I saw a post. I don't remember where it was. It might have been on our community. I think it was today. Someone was talking about the whole in the DMG somewhere. It talks about how many encounters you're supposed to have in a quote adventuring day, and someone had come up with this convoluted system to um, try to get around that or try to enforce that. And I tried to do that too. Honestly, I would just ignore the whole thing about so many encounters per adventuring day. The only time that's ever really going to happen is in a dungeon. And even then, if the player characters really want to rest, they're going to be able to figure out a way to do it. Like, case in point, Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan has a mechanic in place. There's this amber poison gas in the air that's there to prevent you from short resting all the time because you're taking damage every hour. But the PC, Steve specifically, who's here in the chat, was able to use gust of wind to blow that out of a room and then seal the room so that they could rest. And, you know, I think actually in the adventure it suggested that something like that would work. But even if it didn't, I would have let him do that because, you know, I like to reward player creativity, and I see that as, you know, I've set this obstacle in front of you, which is there's this poison gas so you can't take a rest, and you found a way to overcome that, which I think is what the game is about. So the point of the game is to make you overcome an obstacle, not to prevent you from resting. So what I do instead of worrying about how many encounters they get, is I'll just use more difficult encounters. Because the nice thing about a party that's fully rested is you can throw crazy hard encounters at them that if you're doing the 6 to 8 encounters per day or whatever it is, you can't use. You know, you have to worry about throwing something that's way beyond what the DMG says they can handle. But if they're just had a long rest and they have all their resources, they can oftentimes, especially if they're like beyond like third level or so, they can oftentimes handle things like kind of hit above their weight class, so to speak. So that's kind of how I approach it. Is I'll just if I feel like they're resting too much, I'll either throw harder encounters at them so it's still challenging, or I'll use random encounters to discourage resting, which is kind of the way it's always been done in D&D. That's one of the reasons we have random encounters is, you know, anytime you rest, there's a chance there's going to be an encounter is going to happen while you're trying to rest. And, you know, you can make those encounters challenging. And also, if you use XP, if you don't do like milestones, you can award less XP for random encounters. And the way I tend to do it is a normal encounter, like an encounter that I plan, is a lot of times going to coincide with some kind of story goal. So not only do the player characters get XP for defeating the monsters, like whatever XP the monsters are worth, but they also get bonus XP for achieving a story goal or a milestone, whatever you want to call it. But a random encounter, they don't get that because there's no story goal that they get for defeating a random encounter. So if the player characters, and I don't know if this really works because I don't tell them what the XP is for, but they actually will get more XP for a set piece encounter or a planned encounter than they will for a random encounter. So in that way, you're kind of dissuading them from resting because it's like, well, if we rest, we may have to face more encounters and they're not going to be as rewarding as far as XP and treasure as the other encounters we would have to face um, anyway. Or if nothing else, they're just going to be annoying and they're going to deplete resources. And I tend to make random encounters fairly challenging. And that's one thing I've noticed in a lot of the published adventures is a lot of their random encounters are like a joke. Like they're really low CR creatures and they're just kind of an annoyance. But I think if you make the random encounters actually challenging and dangerous, that will kind of discourage them from resting too much. I mean, they should be able to rest some. I mean, the mechanics are there so they can short rest and long rest. You just don't want them resting so much that there's no challenge. So I'd rather just kind of adjust to that on the fly by using random encounters and by having more difficult encounters than worrying about how many encounters they're doing before they rest. And you can easily kind of ramp up an encounter by giving monsters maximum hit points, by adding some like lower CR minion monsters with them, or by having there be 2 of the thing instead of 1, or giving it legendary actions and all kinds of stuff. And then if you use milestones for XP, you don't have to worry about what did I just do to the monster CR because I gave it legendary actions, and you don't have to figure all that out. You can just give them some extra XP, and you don't have to do any math. So that's how I approach it. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question or if I did the politician thing and completely sidestepped it. All right, let's see. We got just a minute left. Let me see if there's any other questions. Oh, so Raymond says he's sometimes hesitant about random encounters because they tend to clutter his story. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But I think maybe the way to avoid that is to use fewer random encounters, but make the ones that you use like really epic and memorable. Instead of like throwing 5 random encounters at them, just throw 1 at them, but make it something really crazy. And I don't so much do really random encounters. I actually plan my random encounters ahead of time. I just don't decide exactly when and where it happens, but I'll make an encounter and just save it for when I need a random encounter, and then I use that encounter instead of just like rolling on a table or whatever. Or I might make a few and then I roll between those to decide which one happens. So it's sort of random, but yeah, it'd be hard to design an encounter just on the fly randomly. I think, especially if you're trying to make it really challenging, I think that would be difficult. What is the average airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? That's a good question. African or European? All right. Well, that's the time. I'm unfortunately out of time, and I got to get ready to run a game here in a few minutes. So I'll be back right here on this channel in about half an hour, and we're going to do Hidden Shrine. It's our 5th session, so I hope you guys will come back. And thanks for coming. I'm really happy so many people showed up and people were asking questions. And I'm going to be doing this the first Monday of every month at the very least. I may do it more often. And next time I'll try to have figured out how I can pull people in if people want to come in. And maybe just if you're going to be here next time and you want to come into the Hangout, maybe let me know earlier that day, like on Google Plus, or email me or tweet me or something, just in case I don't have it figured out. If nothing else, I can send you the link to the Hangout, and then we can have someone on here other than just me. That could be fun. But anyway, thanks everyone for coming, and I'll be back in about half an hour with Hidden Shrine. And if I don't see you then, I will see you next month.